Welcome to Bonehead Weekly. And it's time again, gentlemen, for one of those topics that's always popular, that our audience screams for year after year, week after week, month after month.
It was
But
the year that
I just wanted to do one of those long James pauses.
Yeah, but
yeah, like James is doing now, where we cut in to a year.
But we're doing a little something different this time.
We're going to make it entertaining.
That ain't gonna happen. There ain't no damn way in hell.
Don't you make promises you know we can't keep.
That's true.
So previously we've talked about the best years of movies. You know, hey, in 1994,
We've done 94, we've done 89, we've done 84, we've done 82.
Yes, and those have been all great years in cinema, but we've never talked about a year where cinema may have missed the step.
There is no such thing.
Yeah, well, we're going to find out, because 1983 is notorious for not being a great year for movie releases. Now, there are going to be some gems that we're going to talk about from 1983.
More pointedly, the article that I thought you read that I read was 1983 was a terrible year for sequels.
But yeah, there's also other. And that is true. When we talk about the summer movie events, it was mostly sequels, and those sequels were bad. So when we get to that point, which we'll probably be doing in part 2 of this episode, because this will be a 2-parter, we're not going to make you sit here and listen to us for 2.5 hours talking about a year in movies. We're gonna break this up into a couple episodes, maybe, depending on how quickly this goes. But I also think after doing my own quick research, I didn't do too much because I like to be surprised on these episodes. I really think 1983 was just a bummer year for people.
I mean, there's one good movie I know.
There's at least 3 that I know that were
off the top of my head. I know one.
I know one too. It's probably the one we're thinking of. Both together.
But there's also another terrible movie with it doesn't matter.
Well, we're gonna get to it.
Chad.
So before we get to that, we're going to do our standard thing of talking about what happened in 1983. And there is some great things, and there are some things that piss me off royally that happened in 1983. Should we go with let's go with the big one that makes me happy. 1983, we got introduced to Mario and Luigi. They first made their appearance in 1983 on a game that was released in Japan. Now let's talk about the thing that pisses me off more than anything in the world. In 1983, Hidden Valley introduced ranch dressing that did not have to be refrigerated, and this led to the ranch snack craze. I know my 2 friends here love ranch dressing.
That doesn't even make sense.
What doesn't make sense?
Were there no killings? Were there no murders in 1983?
Were there no poorhouses? Were there no workhouses? Were there nowhere for your family to go? Did ranch dressing buy the family farm and murder your grandmother?
I hate ranch dressing. I hate the taste of it. I hate the smell of it. I do not care for it. I hate the fact that it's the new ketchup and people order it over ketchup. I don't understand them, and I know you two love it. And Chad, I'm not judging.
In all fairness,
judging. He said judging.
No, but I corrected myself and said I'm judging.
In all fairness, Chad, a lot of people have stopped doing ketchup because a lot of ketchups have excess sugar in them, whereas ranch doesn't. It's just got fat, but it doesn't have sugar. That's true, by the way. Look it up.
Well, that's fine. It still tastes like shit.
Well, maybe to you, but then again,
as opposed to moldy blue cheese.
And I don't know how you all feel about this. There is one thing that came out in 1983 as well that I really do love to this day. I know Joe's kind of steered away from this in recently, but French's Dijon mustard also premiered in 1983 as well, which I still love.
It's recently steered away from. I'm just not a big.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You're not a big mustard. You're not as big.
I like fan. Mustard if it's the really good shit like that Russian mustard I brought you back from Canada. That stuff is good. If it's exquisite, then I like it.
I like Dijon mustard. I
just don't want your damn whatever that yellow crap is.
I hate yellow mustard. I hate the Dusseldorf mustard. That weird grayish yellow shit from White Castle.
No, I may like that. I don't know. Let's go get drunk and go to the White Castle.
But no, I still pretty much the only mustard that I'll eat, if it is not the fancy kind, is Dijon mustard. No. So what else happened? The first woman went into space. Star Wars. Well, no, skip that one. The Police's "Every Breath You Take" was the #1 song of the year. So was Billie Jean and "Beat It." Flat. Oh shoot, can't talk about that one yet. And shoulder pads became all the rage.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah, other things that happened in 1983. United States invaded Grenada. It's Grenada.
Over Granada. I'll never be over Granada.
Grenada, tomato. What's the matter with you?
And what would eventually doom our society, ARPANET officially changes to use the internet protocol, creating the internet.
Mm.
And then also the other thing that happened is the final episode of MASH aired. Record 125 million people watched it. I am talking way too fast. And then also, unfortunately, again, the Cabbage Patch Doll premiered. So that's what happened in 1983. Huh?
I said, yeah. Do you have a Cabbage Patch doll?
No, I didn't, but my brothers did, if that tells you anything.
No more than I already knew. I never had a Cabbage Patch doll either.
Oh, Joe, final thing.
I had a pound puppy.
I had a pound puppy. The other thing, Joe, I'd like to mention for you too. Also in 1983, Fraggle Rock premiered.
Yeah. Dance your cares away. Worries for another
I
day,
prefer the doozers. Work your cares away.
Chad. No, you don't.
Kind of do.
By the way, I never had a real pound puppy. I had the one you got at Burger King or Dairy Queen.
Oh, yeah, Hardee's, sir. It was
Hardee's.
Hardee's.
Was it Hardee's?
Hardee's
Yeah, I never had
gave
an
that.
actual real pound puppy. I had the one that
No,
comes
I had the
with
Hardee's
Happy
ones,
Meal
yeah.
thing. Yeah, that's.
I think I had a pound puppy. I really do.
A real one.
Yeah, I think
Look
so.
at you, Mr. Fancy Fuck.
I can't remember. I might not have. I might have just had the Hardee's one.
I don't remember. I did. Are you sure that came from Hardee's, James?
It had a little bobblehead right on it. Is that right? And it was fuzzy.
I thought it was just a small.
No, it was
came
just a
with
small. It was
box.
basically.
It's a small version.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the one I had. That I didn't realize that was a fast food one.
Yeah.
Well, James, your
Yes,
turn.
James.
Dead-
Well,
dead-
hold on. Now
dead
I'm
air.
checking. Pound Puppies Hardee's pops up on Google when I search.
All
so-
right. All right.
All right, gentlemen. January 7th was considered the first weekend of 1983's movie releases. And you know what movie premiered that weekend?
No idea.
I don't either, because none of them charted. But you know what kept on rolling strong that weekend that had already made $59 million in those $80?
Wasn't E.T. by then? I can't remember what we did for 82.
Gentlemen, that would be the classic film, which is probably banned in a couple states right now, Tootsie.
Oh yeah, that does.
Tootsie had
That
already
was
made
one. That was one of the three. I didn't
59
realize. But I thought that premiered in '83, so that's an '82. So that doesn't
That's
even
an
count as
82,
'83.
but it was
Yeah,
on
like
week
Christmas.
four,
Mhm.
and it made $59 million and still made $15 million that weekend. The movie in second place had been in fifth place the week before, but was another holdover. That would be 48 Hours.
Oh, that's a good one.
It went from it had fallen to 5, but jumped back up to 2. And then the third movie is The Verdict.
I just
Again-
watched that, by the way, with Paul Newman.
What do
I
you
watched
think?
their
That one-
holdover.
Yeah,
It was in its fifth week.
I really enjoyed it.
I did too.
It's a Sidney Lumet film I hadn't seen.
See, I thought we had again. I'm sorry, I made this up in my head. I thought we had a conversation, and you said it was boring. That's why you didn't care for it.
Chad,
I
I
didn't know
never
you
seen
hadn't
it
seen
until
it.
I had surgery.
I didn't know you
in
hadn't seen
January.
it. Yeah. No, I love.
I had
The
no
Verdict.
recollection of ever seeing it, so I watched it in January.
I wrote a paper I wrote a paper about The Verdict in college.
Mm.
All these movies, by the way, I'll just do the top 10. We're all holdovers. I'll go through the rest pretty quickly. Number 4 was The Dark Crystal in its fourth week.
Seen that?
Number 5 was The Toy in its fifth week.
Jackie Gleason's best performance.
Number 6 was Best Friends in its fourth week.
That was a huge bomb, right? No, I'm thinking of the Best Defense. Keep going.
Number
But was it-
7.
By the way,
in
The
its-
Toy. Have you all watched? I'm not sorry, but have you all watched The Toy recently?
That's Dick Donner's finest film, Chad.
Oh boy, it does not hold up. And
I
that
didn't
was
think
one.
it
That was
would.
one of my favorite movies as a kid. It does not hold up.
Yeah.
Number 7 in its 31st week was E.T.
Yeah.
Still bringing in $3 million a weekend, over $3 million a weekend. Number 8 in its third week was Kiss Me Goodbye. Number 9 in its fifth week was Airplane 2.
The sequel.
And number 10 in its 24th week was An Officer and a Gentleman.
Love Lift Us Up, where we were wrong.
Oh, I don't care for that movie.
I liked it. I
Mm.
haven't seen it in years.
Hey,
I,
that
prefer,
was
I, pre- I
week
still
number-
prefer. I still prefer the toy.
That was week number 1. Do you want to know week number 2?
Enlighten us.
The same thing. All holdovers. The only thing that changed was An Officer and Gentleman went from being in 10th place back up to 7th place, knocking E.T. down to 8th place.
Oh, man.
Otherwise, the same movies. They moved around a little bit. Airplane, the sequel, dropped to 2. But so week 2 and week 1, pretty much the same films. No 1983 films have broken the top 10 yet.
Week 3.
Will we see it happen in week 3? No. Week 3. Week 3. Now, number 11, gentlemen, there's 2 films that break the top 13 that are from 1983. Those films, number 11, The House on Sorority Row.
Yeah.
And number 13, The Year of Living Dangerously.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Year of Living Dangerously.
None of them break the top 10, though. It's still the same films that ended 1982. Hey, but we're to week 4 now. Will things change? No, they won't, gentlemen. It's still the same. I take that back. There is one exception. These movies had gone from limited release to wide release, so they moved into the top 10, but they were 1982 films. Gandhi, actually 3. Sophie's Choice and The Man from Snowy River move into the top 10, but they had been released earlier.
So they're just like re-releases?
Yeah, or they were in limited release in America and then expand. I think The Man from Snowy River was in limited release because it was in its 13th week.
I'd
wonder if
never
that had
seen that until a few years ago.
The Man from Snowy River?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I've ever seen it, guys.
Well, Kirk Douglas actually plays 2 roles in it.
So, gentlemen, we are now to the 5th week, which, by the
What?
way, if you're keeping track,
I apologize to the listeners.
we're now in our 5th week, which puts us February 4th, the week of
Okay.
February 4th.
I'm excited. Feel these
And we get 3 films
Yes.
that were released in 1983 that break into the top 10. None
Okay.
of them hit number 1. Tootsie is still number 1.
Ugh.
But number 2 is the classic film we all recall, The Entity.
Entity is the one with Barbara Hershey, right?
Yes, and Ron Silver.
Yeah, and it has one of the best lines, final lines spoken by an evil demon in film history.
Which is what?
Welcome home, you.
Oh,
See you next Tuesday. I may have butchered it, but it's welcome back or something, whatever. If that gives you an inclination of how that movie ends.
a story.
Well, that's number 2.
A story so shocking, so threatening, it will frighten you beyond all imagination.
It's not bad. It's not bad, but it's yeah.
right.
We don't see another 1983 release until we get to number 6, which is, of course, the film Without a Trace.
I don't remember it.
I don't remember it either.
Without a Trace is about an estranged New Yorker played by Kate Nelligan who turns to police after her son disappears.
And
It
Judd
premieres
Hirsch.
at number 6 and would go on to make $8 million total during its entire
Oh my
run.
God, what would
It's
I do
directed
with
by
$8 million?
it's directed by Stanley Jaffe.
What does Stanley Jaffe do?
He produced Fatal Attraction, Kramer versus Kramer, Black Rain, School Ties. This is his only directing credit. He's mostly a producer.
Oh,
The Bad News Bears. I mean, he's a famous producer.
okay.
So number 8 is our final film of 1983 that finally broke the top 10 for this week. Number 8, though, is a film we actually know, I'm pretty sure, because we've seen the Videodrome. Videodrome.
Well,
Oh my God. So I don't. I'm not-
Premiered at number 8 in 600 theaters, averaging $2,500 per theater.
That's one of those movies I really want to go back and watch. I haven't watched it since high school. And all I really remember is the opening where it's a geisha doll and it turns out to be a penis. Am
And
I
you-
remembering the opening correctly on that?
I don't
That's what-
remember that at all. But
I might
haven't
be
seen it in a
remembering that
long time.
incorrectly.
I just remember the gun that shoots cancer out of his hand.
Right. I might be remembering that incorrectly. I thought the movie opened up, and by the way, if Jake Gobald is listening to this and going, "What the hell are you talking about?" I really did. I thought I remember watching this in high school. So I watched Videodrome the same day that I got introduced to The Hunger. So I might have just been
Now
in a
that's
daze.
one where I prefer Videodrome.
Chad, I don't mean this the wrong way, Chad. Are you sure somebody wasn't just messing with you and been like, no, this is totally video?
It could have been. It could have been. Now I got to go look at the opening of Videodrome. I got to find a copy of
It's
this.
been a while since I've seen it because I love James Woods.
Yeah, well, I
as
do
an
too.
actor.
Unfortunately, you know, yeah,
No.
James Wood was one of my favorite actors.
Hey, James Woods is still a great actor.
He
I just
is.
don't follow
Separate the art
his-
from the artist, man.
I know.
I'm trying.
All right, so that's it for week 5. But we were into February before any 1983 films broke the top 10, folks. Are y'all ready for week 6?
Yeah.
Once again, you should feel these nipples.
Those movies, Without a Trace stays on the top 10. The Entity drops to number 3. Without a Trace stays at number 6. Videodrome drops out of the top 10 because number 8 is another new release from Embassy Pictures, the epic film Let's Spend the Night Together.
No idea.
No effing clue.
This is you all would know it because you all know the cast, or I know Joe does. It's the Rolling Stones concert.
Oh, really?
The Rolling Stones
I should
show
have known that.
The Rolling Stones show filmed in Tempe, Arizona, and East Rutherford, New Jersey during their 1981 tour. Premiered at number 8, making $1,767,000.
Guys, I don't mean to interrupt you. I just quickly scanned through the opening of Videodrome. Yeah, there's no geisha dolls. There's no penis as a geisha doll. I don't know what the hell I'm referencing.
Somebody messed with you, man.
Oh my God, what is going on in my head?
think
I
it
want
was
to
a
cry.
priest.
But that's it. That's the only other 1983 films other than The Holdovers. So y'all ready for week 7?
Go for it.
Man.
What
gets a
month?
little
We're in February, right?
Yeah.
Oh, this week I'm getting ready to talk about is February 18th, the weekend that starts February 18th. We're almost through February.
Oh my
Okay.
goodness. Valentine's Day. We were watching Videodrome.
But, gentlemen, this film had 6 movies premiere, and 3 of them actually made it into the top 10. Tootsie was still number 1, though. Gandhi was number 2, had moved up.
Why is Tootsie so damn popular?
It's a huge movie.
I didn't realize it was this freaking huge. Go
Number
ahead.
3, we get the film The Lords of Discipline.
No, I thought you were going to say Flatbush.
You ready for the plot summary? Chad,
Or
do you know The Lords
Dogtown.
of Discipline?
I don't.
In 1960s America, a black cadet is allowed acceptance into a seemingly prestigious military academy, unleashing a barrage of corruption within the system that another cadet is willing to expose. Released from Paramount Pictures. There you
And
go.
it's Keith David's brother, David Keith.
Yeah, that's
Number 4, gentlemen. Dudley Moore and Elizabeth McGovern in Lovesick.
Oh,
I've never seen it.
I
A psychiatrist who falls in love with a patient is visited by the spirit of Sigmund Freud, who gives him advice on relationships.
I have got to go out and find this picture.
Number 5, though, gentlemen, is the movie that changed the gestalt of cinema for Mac Davis. I refer to, of course, The Sting 2.
Oh, and here
Oh,
we go with our
yeah.
first shitty sequel
Oh
of
my God,
1983. I did not know it was The Sting. I didn't realize The
I-
Sting 2 came out that many years after The Sting.
I did not know either. But
I thought it
man,
came out in the late 70s.
No.
that
Ended Mac Davis's acting career.
Honestly, I can't really shit on it. I think I've only ever seen scenes. I don't think I've ever actually seen the whole movie.
Well, I have it on VHS somewhere. It's
And
not,
I have
the,
a working VCR.
well, I
the
know what we're doing next time
problem-
we get together.
the problem with The Sting 2 is it's called The Sting.
Yeah.
If you watched it by itself, it's not good.
Yeah.
But you'd be like, oh, that's entertaining enough. I don't mind wasting an hour and a half on that. That was fun. But it's called The Sting. and you followed up a Academy Award winning film, and you said, I'm going to replace Redford and that other guy, Newman, with an aging Jackie Gleason and Mac Davis. And that's no offense meant to either of those people. They did an okay job. The script wasn't as tight, and you can't capture lightning in a bottle twice.
Yeah.
Now, gentlemen, the rest of these three films I want to mention because they did premiere in 1983, but we go from those being 3, 4, and 5, Lords of Discipline, Lovesick, and The Sting 2, to these other films chart only at points 14, 15, and 16, but 16 kind of shocks me. But number 14, The Pirates of Penzance. Number 15, Table for Five.
Yeah. The sequel to Table for Four.
Number 16.
No, I was going to say it was the prequel for Party of Five.
They all ended up at his house.
Number 16, though, in its defense, I guess this was a relatively limited release, premiering only in 14 theaters, The King of Comedy.
Yeah.
That was number 16. Wow.
16, but it was only in 14 theaters that weekend, and it did make $12,000 per theater compared to the number one movie, Tootsie, which was making $7 million. By the way, Chad, to make you even angrier, Tootsie went up this weekend 31% above the previous weekend. It kept going up.
Do you not like Tootsie?
No, I don't hate it. I just have no attachment to it. I never found it overly funny.
That's what I don't know that. Yeah, I don't know that I can argue with you. I don't have an attachment to it either. It's just one of those really well-made movies that's really well acted.
Yeah. It's just one of those movies I saw.
Victor Victoria, yeah.
Yeah, I saw it and I'm like, okay, it was good. I've never ever gone back to rewatch it. So I'm at that point where I couldn't even tell you anything about the movie. And even though I know it's classic, even though lately it's been getting, maybe canceled, but
yeah.
No, I just
didn't know Tootsie was canceled.
It's getting there. So there you go.
No.
Yeah.
No. All right, gentlemen, are we ready for week 8 beginning on February 25th?
If I can stop coughing, yes.
You know what new movie made it to in the top 12 this weekend?
Enlighten us.
None of them. Number 1 is Tootsie. Number 2 is Gandhi. Number 3 is Lords of Discipline. Number 4 is Lovesick. Number 5 is still 48 hours. Number 6 is Sophie's Choice. Number 7 is The Sting 2. Number 8 is still E.T. Number 9 is The Verdict. And number 10, moving into the top 10, is The Year of Living Dangerously. But no new movies made it into the top 10.
So this random Lords of Discipline is hanging in there.
Yeah.
But I've never seen it. So...
All right. We want to move to week 9. I told you all this would go quick. Week 9, this would be March 4th, the weekend beginning March 4th. Moving into the top, what?
We're in month 3 and there has been nothing.
I told you, Chad,
there
this
was
wouldn't take long. All right, moving into the top 10. Now, this movie does see 4 new movies, but you have to get to the top 15 to find where all of them land. But now in the top 10 at number 5 is, of course, the classic film that we all quote all the time, Vigilante.
I'm actually kind of shocked that Vigilante is in the top 5 there. That's Robert Forster, right?
That sounds right.
Yeah, I think it is.
It is. But
it's just kind of funny because Vigilante on IMDb is listed as 1982.
I don't know. Evidently, it may have been made in 82 and released in some places, but it went to the box office in the U.S. in 83. To see the other ones, I said they'd make the top 15. That's because the other 3 are positions 13, 14, and 15. Number 13 is the beloved film My Tutor.
I think it's one of those kind of tits and ass.
A rich father hires a tutor for his son.
I've seen it.
This is the actual description. The son is a horny teenager, and the tutor is a gorgeous blonde. Complications ensue.
I mean, it speaks volumes that that's the one I've seen.
I'm trying to figure out who. Hold on, I want to know who the female is in this movie. Karen Kay, is that her? Who it is? I don't.
I don't
No,
know. I don't
I don't
remember.
know. There's no. I'm looking at it. I'm not getting a lot of information. Here we go. Karen Kay. Yeah, I'd never heard of this woman. Go ahead, James.
Now this was technically a limited release, so we probably shouldn't be too hard on it that it's number 14, but at number 14, Tender Mercies.
Yeah, that's a really good movie. He won the Academy Award for that.
Yep, Robert Duvall, directed by Bruce Beresford.
Beresford, yeah.
Yep. So, but it premiered only in 3 theaters, so it's not shocking it was number 14. Number 15, premiering only in 1 theater.
Oh, this is just a rip off of the Tender Mercies is just a rip off of that Jeff Bridges movie where he plays a alcoholic country singer.
What you're looking for is Crazy Heart, and that's also a good picture.
Yeah, Tender Mercies completely ripped off Crazy Heart.
Right.
I'm going to explain to you how time works later, Chad, but we don't have time right now. At number 15, premiering in 1 theater, was Baby It's You.
Baby It's You.
Directed by John Sayles, starring Rosanna Arquette, Vincent Spano, and Joanna Merlin. In a 1966 New Jersey high school, Jill and new student Sheik from the other side of the tracks make their way in a first love romance. Anybody?
No, I kind of had a thing for Rosanna Arquette back in the day. That's my only contribution.
Well, I've
conversation.
seen a lot of John Sayles movies, but I've never seen that. I don't even know that I've ever heard that. That's before Mate One.
Yeah.
It premiered,
I
said, limited release, had a budget of $3 million and went on to make worldwide $1.8 million. It did not do well.
Wow.
All right. And that is it for week 9 of 1983. Let's move on to week 10. This would be the weekend that started March 11th. Hey, guess what?
What?
Something's finally going to come along and not Tootsie. No, it's not. I lied. Tootsie is still number 1, Chad.
Oh my God.
Oh, it's going to get worse.
Okay, 1983 moviegoers. The hell's wrong with you?
By the way, this is a weekend where E.T. finally leaves the top 10 too. It falls to 13.
I think Tootsie set the world record for a network paying for broadcast rights as well whenever it was finally broadcast on television.
Well, that makes sense
Google
because look what it did in the movie theaters. I mean, this is like month, 4? And this is a result of multiple viewings. America. The hell?
Why?
By the way, that was a great Bernie Mac show reference there, Chad.
And I'm just going to point out though, as right now we can see, they really didn't have a lot of choice.
Yes, they did. They had Tender Mercies,
Mercies, and Sting 2.
They didn't need anything else. Videodrome during Valentine's Day.
Yeah,
Number 2, though, we do get a 1983 release that maybe you all have seen. Let's try it out for size. Gentlemen, number 2 this week, premiering at $3,745,000 in 595 theaters. By the way, Chad, which is half of how many theaters Tootsie was still in.
Oh my God.
10 to Midnight.
I'd have to look it up.
I'm doing that right now.
Do you know it, Chad? James?
It's a Charles Bronson
LAPD
movie.
detective and his rookie partner on the trail of a psychopathic young man who is murdering young women.
Okay, I would imagine. I've never seen it. You can watch it on Tubi for free.
Charles Bronson, by the way.
The tagline.
Yep, canon. It's a canon film, guys.
Yeah, it's no shocker. It's Charles Bronson. The tagline: a cop, a killer, a deadline.
The guy that directed the original Guns of Navarone and Cape Fear.
Man.
And Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, and Battle for the Planet of the Apes, and Death Wish 4.
I mean, it had a pretty nice cast in it. I mean, Kelly Preston, Wilford Brimley, Jeffrey Lewis, Andrew Stevens. It's an amazing cast. I guess I'll need to watch it.
I know.
Gandhi held on at number 3, but gentlemen, number 4 is a movie. I think you all both have tattoos of this film because it means so much to you. We all remember the classic film Trenchcoat, right?
No.
You know, the movie about an aspiring mystery writer who accidentally becomes embroiled in an international plot during his 2-week stay in Malta.
Never heard of it.
Margot Kidder, Robert Hayes, directed by Michael, is it Tuchner? Tuchner? Tuchner?
No idea. I've never heard of it.
Neither have I.
Trenchcoat, check it out. I mean, I
That-
don't know. I've never actually seen it. I do the research in advance so you all can be surprised. So
I was gonna say, apparently this was. Let me keep looking. No, other than the Misadventures of Mr. Wilt, and this movie, it's his only movies that actually got released in theaters.
It's
Everything.
a Disney film, by the way.
Ooh. Oh no, I take that back. Prior to 1978, he was directing. His movies went to theaters. But after that, all straight TV movies. Go ahead, James.
Chad, you'll be glad to know this. And this is a movie actually I do want to go back and see because I haven't seen it and I've been told I should. It's a movie that got greenlit because of a certain adventurer, because adventure has a name. But anyway, finally knocking Tootsie out of number one. A movie starring Tom Selleck and Bess Armstrong about a World War I alcoholic American biplane pilot who is hired to by the spoiled daughter of an industrialist to find her father who disappeared in Asia. We are, of course, talking about the epic adventure film High Road to China.
Now you brought it up in a previous show.
I've
never seen it either. It's another
movie
one of the Indiana Jones.
I said I
knockoffs.
wanted to see it then because I hadn't heard of it because it's Indiana Jones. It got back because of it. I need to find it. I need to see it. Premiered at number one. Made $8 million. Nobody talks about it anymore. But you know what people do talk about? Chad?
Also, too, the other thing to note, and I didn't mention this in the recap of 1983. This was peak Tom Selleck. This was Magnum PI. This is in 1983. Every guy was buying Hawaiian shirts because of Magnum PI. So
Nothing to do with Dom DeLuise.
that explains why this movie was number one. Did you say it was number one, or was Trenchcoat number one?
No. Trenchcoat was that's last week, Chad. We moved on. Trenchcoat, It was number one. High Road to China is the only 1983 release that premiered that week that was in the top 10.
James, Joe and James, one thing about Trenchcoat that we failed to mention, it is written by the amazing, gets credited. They wrote the screenplay, the amazing duo of Jeffrey Price and Peter Seaman, who are two amazing screenwriters who I would love to talk to. Didn't realize that was them.
Why don't you tell the audience what they wrote?
Most people, they know The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, but one of my top favorite movies of all time, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and among many, many, many others. And I keep forgetting that they're the creators of Johnny Bago.
And his last name is Seaman.
James, go ahead.
Now, this next movie
on James.
This next movie technically was in limited release, but didn't chart. But then when it got released wide, it went to number one. And it was followed by another release that was limited release that went to number one, or number two, sorry. And that knocked High Road to China down. So I guess these are actually some films that people do tend to know, at least one of them. Number one, after being in limited release the week before, is Spring Break. Anybody? Spring Break?
No, I've never seen it.
Mm-mm.
Two sets of two college guys spend a spring break together in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. They have lots of fun in and out of the sun. It's another one of those sex comedies.
Yeah.
The Outsiders is number two.
Okay.
High Road to China falls to three. Outsiders, by the way, S.E. Hinton's book.
Yeah, that's one of those movies that, again, I know Francis Ford Coppola. It's a classic. It's just one of those. It's one of those movies that I never had a connection to.
Yeah,
I should say this, by the way. Evidently, a lot of movies had been in limited release earlier, and all of a sudden came out this weekend because they're showing that they're on week 2, but they're new to the chart. So I guess this is kind of a big week because Tootsie does get knocked to 4.
Hey, Spring Break was directed by Sean Cunningham.
Yes.
Oh.
Okay. For those that need a quick reminder, Sean Cunningham directed them Murder Pictures.
Yeah, he directed. He produced Wes Craven's first couple of films, and he went on to direct Friday the 13th. It's the one that everybody remembers. And the guy that did the music for Friday the 13th, Harry Manfredini, who's one of the nice guys if you meet him at a convention, did the music for Spring Break. Sorry, now keep going.
We also get Max Dugan Returns in number.
Okay.
I've never seen that.
long time ago. So I mean, yeah, I mean, it's not bad. But again, it's written by Neil Simon, of course.
Yeah.
So
Sword in the Stone is number 7.
wait, the Disney movie?
The re-release.
Yeah, it's a re-release.
So it was re-released. Okay.
But
So
number
that
I'm
doesn't
sorry,
even
number
count.
6. It was number 6 as a re-release. Number 7 is the one I wanted to talk about because it is one that we do know, or I hope we do know, because it's Wafa Thin.
Oh, really? The Meaning
The
of
Meaning
Life?
of Life premiered at number 7.
Oh.
You know, it won the Palme d'Or at Cannes that year.
So 1983 wasn't terrible. We had The Meaning of Life. We got that.
Not technically like the 4th Python picture, but as far as proper what people consider, it's the 3rd Python picture. So that's one
Right.
sequel, kind of.
By the way, number 9 is another one of those movies. It's not the one that everybody knows now, but Bad Boys.
Oh, with Sean Penn in the
Sean
prison.
Penn.
I've
Yep.
never seen it.
And outside the top 10, there's 2 things I want to mention. E.T. rebounds from 13 to 11, but number 12, they re-released a film into theaters, and it went on to make an additional $1,650,000. That would be Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark. I wonder why they re-released that. Number 13 was another new movie, Man, Woman, and Child from Paramount Pictures.
Never heard of it. Next weekend.
A man with a wife and 2 daughters learns that he has a son.
Next weekend.
Okay.
Unless you want to hear about the plot.
Well, no, it's the cast on it was what. But anyway,
this is usually where. By the way, I just want to point out, Joe gets this way probably around August, September, but man, he is going full tilt on this. So
I'm just saying.
1983 is a bad year.
What
April 8th.
the fuck?
April 8th. So the next weekend is technically week 14 in 1983. And you know what happens on that week? Tootsie goes back to number 1, Chad.
Oh,
thank
Christ.
God.
You know what else happens?
No.
My Tutor goes from 14 to 11. You know
Dude.
why? There's nothing else out, Chad.
It has
There's
topless scenes in it.
But nothing else changes. So we'll move on. Hey, guess what? We're to week 15, and gentlemen, you'll be excited.
Yeah.
Because you know what's number 1 this weekend?
What?
The greatest film that Orion Pictures ever released.
RoboCop.
No, that's not 1983, Joe.
Silence of the Lambs.
Obviously, the greatest film that Orion ever
Three
released
Amigos.
was Lone Wolf McQuade, number 1 at the box office.
I swear to God, I thought that was a canon movie.
Premiered in 1,221 theaters, which at this time was a huge.
He must have been.
big-
I wonder when Chuck Norris did sign with Canon, because I mean, this must have been prior to signing.
But you know what's interesting? Not a lot of
Yeah.
people talk about Lone Wolf McQuade, and it's not been remade to my knowledge. But you know what number 2 was that technically had a higher per average yield or per
What?
theater yield, but was in less theaters? Flashdance. You kids love Flashdance.
Oh, what a feeling!
Anybody got anything else? Because the rest of the movies are the same.
No, I
No.
don't. You know, Flashdance isn't something I haven't seen since I was a kid. And and I'm not being a smartass to comment on it. I'd have to go back and watch the damn thing because I don't even, other than her being a welder and water falling on her, I don't know. I can't remember things.
Yeah, culturally, it was an iconic, especially for that year. I mean, it changed fashion.
Yeah. it was a big movie.
Irene Cara, who is in DC Cab. Yo. Oh, what a feeling! It topped the charts that year. I mean, it was I think it was number 2 or number 3 for that year. I mean, it had a lot of cultural impact, but the movie itself, I mean,
I just haven't seen it in a long, long time. Nor have I seen Lone Wolf McQuade in a long, long time. I couldn't tell you the plot, couldn't tell you a damn thing about it.
Yeah.
Well, by the way, though, gentlemen, as you can tell, the box office is on fire, and to illustrate that point, Tootsie did fall back from number 1, obviously, as Lone Wolf McQuade took it, but it held on at number 3 And Gandhi moved back up to number 4, and E.T. went back from out of the top 10 back into the top 10 at number 9.
Man.
This is not going well for 1983. So
I just
think
want
you
to
all,
get in a time. I really do. I just would love to go see some of these movies in the theater with some of these crowds.
yeah, I mean,
This is my
think
fifth
about it.
showing of Gandhi. It gets better every
Well,
time.
I probably wouldn't check out Gandhi, but I'd love to be in a theater when The Thing came out that summer. But keep going, James.
All right, so
Spoiler.
gentlemen, we
Huh?
are now to week 16, which started April 22nd. You know what happens? Flashdance takes over number 1 from Lone Wolf McQuade. But you know what happens else? My Tutor goes from the near the bottom up to number 3.
Because she's tutoring him topless.
Yeah, and that's all.
You
that
know
can
how many
happen is-
theaters
is-
it adds, gentlemen?
uh-huh.
From its previous releases, 347 new screens, and its percentage goes up 396% increase in income, which
And that has to
again,
be.
in
I
its
mean-
8th week in release.
I hate to say this, but I really think that's probably what happened. Is people started going and go, "Hey, there's breast in this movie,"
Yeah.
and then more people started going, and then it just built up steam.
Cheapest
mean,
special
because-
effect in cinema history.
But again, gentlemen, let me just run through the top 10 to tell you how few options there were. If you were somebody that went to the movie even every 2 weeks, you have Flashdance, you have Lone Wolf McQuade, My Tutor's at number 3, Tootsie's at number 4 in its 19th week.
Yeah.
The Meaning of Life is at number 5. It moved up. Gandhi is at number 6 in its 20th week. The Outsiders in its 5th week is at number 7. Max Dugan Returns in its 5th week is at number 8. Spring Break in its 5th week is at number 9. And E.T. in its 46th week is at number 10. There's
Wow.
not a lot of new stuff coming out. So what are you going to watch if you were a frequent moviegoer? Week 17, we're now to the end of April. This is the weekend that began April 29th. But don't worry, gentlemen, we get 3 new films. Flashdance is number 1, but you know what's number 2?
Mm-mm.
What?
The movie some people argue actually sunk Disney's live action for a while. Something Wicked This Way.
This way
Comes.
come.
No.
That's another one I need to go back and watch again sometime.
Yeah, I
It's
never
been a
was,
long time.
but I never was a fan of it either. I do need to watch it because it's been a long time. But even I just never was a fan.
I wasn't a huge fan either. I actually have the book over here somewhere near me. It's Bradbury. I see it actually. It's right next to Starship Troopers, and my Lovecraft, The Love of the Dead.
But-
Go ahead.
But one thing I want to say is what shocks me about this is a Disney movie, and I would argue it didn't. I mean, it made average $3,799 per theater. But one of the things that shocks me about it is it didn't get a great rollout. Flashdance in its 3rd week was still in 1,140 movie theaters. Tootsie in its 20th week was in 865. Something Wicked This Way Comes only premiered in 817 theaters.
Wow.
It was being beat out by movies as far as even being given a chance to show that were in their 20th, 21st, and 47th week.
I don't even know if that's on Disney Plus. I need to see.
But number 3 is another new release. It's Joe's favorite accent to do. That's right, gentlemen. Valley Girl.
Oh my God.
Starring-
My God.
The greatest, the person that Laurence Olivier wished he could have been. Sir Nicolas Cage.
Jan Michael Vincent.
Number 4 is the other new release we get this weekend. And I think you all actually mentioned this earlier, at least in previous episodes. That, gentleman, would be The Hunger.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of people like The Hunger for some inexplicable reason. For me, it's shot. It's Tony Scott.
It's
I-
boring.
The answer is David
It's
Bowie.
it's extremely boring. I know David Bowie's in it, but it's extremely boring.
Well, it's David Bowie,
it's boring.
Susan
vampire.
Sarandon, and Catherine. I get tongue-tied on her.
No, the reason, and if it's men liking it, the reason they like it is there's a nice lesbian scene with Susan Sarandon and the other lady. That
Yeah.
Catherine
Catherine
mentioned.
Deneuve.
Deneuve, I think, or something like that. Yeah, I didn't care for it. It may be that and The Keep, which is another movie that people seem to have rediscovered over time. And then I didn't care for watching that either when I was younger, so I wouldn't mind going back and
That is,
revisiting
I
those.
didn't realize those both came out in 1983. That's crazy. That
I
in
don't know
high
that The
school-
Keep came out in 1983.
Well, no, I'm just saying that the Videodrome and The Hunger came out in 1983 when my friend in high school and I got together and went to his house, and he said, "We're going to rent these two movies," and he picked Videodrome and Hunger, and that's
well,
what we
they had the
watched.
1983 shelf.
Yeah, maybe.
It was
It
the
was on the
rock
big
bottom
shelf.
remainders.
All right. Well, gentlemen, nothing else new came out that weekend. So it was just more or less a repeat. Let me oh no, I've lost my place. What a lamentable tragedy. We are now
In
into
May.
May, beginning May 6th. And oh, gentlemen, we've got good news. Hope springs eternal. Because Flashdance holds on to number 1, but you know what's number 2?
What?
The greatest non-Ghostbusters, non-Blues Brothers, non-Nothing But Trouble Dan Aykroyd film ever. I refer you to
Neighbors.
Dr. Detroit.
Okay, so Dr. Detroit is not a good movie, but it does have some funny, enjoyable scenes.
Agreed.
But
Yeah.
I mean, there's not much you can say about it, though.
no, it's got T.K. Carter in it. It's got one of Chad's favorite character actors of all time, Howard Hessman.
Hessman. Yeah. Donna Dixon's in it, man. I know that's his wife, but still.
Don
Um,
Dixon.
Fran Drescher.
I haven't seen it in a long time.
So,
I
by
haven't
the way, that
either.
was Dr. Detroit was from Universal. Paramount still holding on, obviously, number 1 with Flashdance, but also releases this weekend in 710 theaters. Still Smoking.
Oh yeah, Cheech and Chong. But the interesting thing about Still Smoking is it's not really a proper movie, as they, you've heard the Pythons bitch about the Holy Grail's not really a proper movie. Still Smoking's not. It's more of just a combination of loose sketches and whatnot.
Yeah, and it's kind of boring. I didn't
Yeah.
care for it at all.
Yeah.
Not
Put
in
it
the
at number
slightest.
3, but you know what got number 4?
What?
Porky's. And I know what you're thinking. Porky's is older than that. That's because in 1983, 20th Century Fox didn't have anything else out, so they just re-released Porky's, and it charted at number 4.
Well,
Jeez.
Number
there's going to
12
be a
is the-
movie coming out in a few weeks that's directed by the same guy, Bob Clark.
Well, number 12, by the way, is another re-release. MGM re-released Rocky 3.
I always forget Rocky 3 came out in 82. I always, for some odd reason in my head, think it came out 83, 84.
But otherwise, nothing new. So let's move on to week 19, which, by the way, is May 13th. But don't worry again, gentlemen. It's a movie I know you all love. Number 1.
By the way,
Finally.
back to real quick before you go into that. Back on Rocky. I just got a quick question because me and James agree on a lot, I feel like, in terms of favorite actors, favorite movies, and stuff like that. But this is the one thing we disagree on because Rocky 3 is probably other than Rocky Balboa, but Rocky 3 is probably my favorite Rocky movie.
Okay. Well, obviously, the first Rocky is actually is
Yeah.
I know
agree
I
with-
can't. No, I still love Rocky 3.
No, I'd
My
have to go
favorite-
with Rocky 1 and then Rocky Balboa.
my favorite as far as the sequels go. And Rocky Balboa is, yes, has the most heart. But I have a soft spot for Rocky 4 simply because it is the most jingoistic, nothing but,
it's a music
totally-
video.
Did
it's
you
the
watch?
1980s.
Did you watch the recut?
No, I wanted to, and I haven't got to yet.
I want to.
I
No,
need to get it. I need to
Rocky,
get it.
but seriously, Rocky 1, I love Rocky 1. I really do, but it takes a backseat to Rocky 3 because Rocky 3 was my childhood movie. It was the one I watched all the time, and I love Mr. T. I love that whole movie. Them killing Burgess Meredith. It's
Which he said if he had it to do over, he wouldn't have.
I know, but it made an impact on me. So even as a kid, because I loved Mickey. Yeah. So anyway, so James, go ahead.
So we are now to week 19, but good news, gentlemen, we do have another new number 1, knocking off Flashdance. Actually, and we have a new number 1 and number 2. And gentlemen, I know you're big fans of John Badham, and you always say, what if you had a script written by Dan O'Bannon,
I know which movie it is.
Don
Yeah.
Jacoby, Dean Reisner, directed by John Badham, and starring both Warren Oates and Roy Schneider. Well, gentlemen, you would have Blue Thunder.
So I may have told the story on before. Shit. Why can't I think of his damn name? Who wrote it again? The guy that wrote
Dan O'Bannon.
Dan O'Bannon hated like a lot. Dan O'Bannon hated a lot of people, but he did not have nice things to say about that particular director, John Badham. And John Badham made a few movies I really like.
Mhm.
He was talking about that when he met him, all he said was, "I think this is a comic book movie," and that was the only thing he ever said. There was never any input, and that's where he took the movie and went on. It never really kind of soared to where Dan O'Bannon wanted it to.
All right. Well, number 2 is another new movie. And to be honest, it's not one I know. Maybe you all do, but the second movie that was new and also fell to number 2 is Breathless.
Oh, with Richard Gere.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which again, the writers on that are people to conjure with. Francois Truffaut.
Well, it's a
Jean-Luc
remake,
Godard.
right?
Yeah.
It's a remake of Truffaut's Breathless. I've
Yeah.
never seen it, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Yes. You are correct, sir.
Yeah. I
Those
don't
are
know
the
who
other-
directed that version.
What now?
I don't know who directed that version.
Jim McBride.
Oh, Jimmy.
You may remember Jim McBride for such things as The Big Easy,
I like
David Holtzman Diary, Glenn and
Yeah.
Randa.
No.
He directed some episodes of 6 Feet Under more recently. He's, to my
He did-
knowledge, still alive.
He did Great Balls of Fire. Did you say that, James?
No.
I actually like that too.
Those
All
are the only other movies that premiered. The rest were, hey, Porky's as a re-release is still hanging into the top 10 at number 6.
Man.
So we're now to May 20th. This is week 20. And you know what premieres at number 1, gentlemen?
What?
That would be Star Wars. Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. But what shocks me is, you know what premiered at number 2? Anybody want to say anything about Return of the Jedi?
No. Go ahead, Jan.
No, it's a classic, but it is if you consider it, it is kind of a crappy sequel, even though I love it. It was my introduction to Star Wars.
It has some great scenes in it.
Yeah.
It's not the problem is people shit on it for years, and then they got the prequels, and so people don't really shit on Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, they got the prequels, and then they got 2 of the sequels of the
I swear I forgot that Return of the Jedi came out in 83. I'm not being a smart ass. So I'm actually sitting here going, yeah, dumbass. I forgot that was coming.
I knew that was coming. That was on my list.
I forgot. I totally forgot.
It was Tootsie and that, and then one other one. Go ahead, James.
So that was number 1,
Yeah.
and it premiered in 1,002 theaters,
Mm-hmm.
which again is a pretty large number. But you know what premiered in 1,338 theaters and came in at second?
No, who would want to release at the same time anyway?
Well, 20th Century Fox obviously did Star Wars. Well, Columbia Pictures, not to be outdone, did their own space epic. And if you're going to do it, you're going to do it in 3D. You're
It'd
going
be
to let
Adventure Zone.
Lamont Johnson direct it. And you're going to get the best of the Ghostbusters you can afford before he does Ghostbusters. That's right. Ernie Hudson with Peter Strauss and Molly Ringwald. We're talking about Space Hunter, Adventures in the Forbidden Zone.
So that's actually produced by Ivan Reitman. Not a big hit.
No, it premiered.
Obviously, what did it go against?
Have you ever seen it? I've seen it.
I have not seen it, and I want to see it.
It's not dreadful. It's just boring. I don't know what they spent all the money on.
Well, gentlemen, here's what I'm shocked
I'm not a
about.
huge fan of Peter Strauss, but everybody else in it.
Here's what I'm shocked about. So that premiered in 1,338 theaters compared to Star Wars' 1,002. But you know what was still occupying 1,539 theaters?
Tootsie?
Blue Thunder. Blue Thunder.
Yeah.
You looked at Star Wars coming out, and as somebody, and I guess this was a time, Joe, would this have been a time when some of the theaters were still owned, or was that over?
I think that's over by then. I think that a lot of the monopoly broke up in the 70s, and a lot of that stuff also led to the breakup
Yeah.
of the studio system. I am so sorry. You should remove my Film Geek card, but
No, I don't know. I don't know because I just can't figure out. And maybe it's because we view Star Wars the way we
there
view Star
was
Wars.
some of that up until the late 80s, but it was with certain chains, James.
Yeah, that's
For
what I mean. Because
example,
I don't see why, because it's not like this wasn't even the first Star Wars sequel. This was the third one. You saw what the other two had done. So why would you say, you know what, we're doubling down on this Space Hunter and Blue Thunder and giving them more theaters?
yeah,
Matter
basically,
of fact, Flashdance was still in more theaters.
yeah, what you got to remember, well, I shouldn't say what you got to remember. I can remember in 88, 87, 88, being in Florida to visit my grandmother and my mom there in Merritt Island. There was a Merritt Island North and South, and one was in the mall and one was across the parking lot from the mall theater. And that was a great thing about going there, was to see movies in the summer with my mom, and my grandmother never went. And I can't remember what movie it was, but I remember the theater I was telling my mom she couldn't see it because they didn't have a deal with whatever studio it was. But I don't think there's a lot of that.
By the way, Poltergeist is also re-released this weekend and charts at number 15.
Man, that's one thing that's kind of gone. Well, I mean, it is gone. We never see re-releases anymore, except for those Cinemark events. You know.
Yeah. Well, the reason is, I mean, because we just saw the Evil Dead Rise. What, 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
The Blu-ray release is in sometime in June.
Yeah.
May. June. I mean, it's just the turnaround on this shit's ridiculous.
But I think that was furthered by COVID too, right? I mean,
it's been even further by COVID. Yeah. So I wanted to see Air. Air's already on Prime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't watched it yet, and I wouldn't even have known it was going to be on Prime if I hadn't just accidentally read an article about it. All right. What's next?
All right. Well, we're closing out May weekend beginning May 27th. This would be week 21, gentlemen. We get one new release because the Star Wars picture, even though it's only in 1,000 theaters,
it's crazy to me that Space Hunter was in more theaters. Seriously, that's shocking.
We'll go on to make, $42 million this weekend. This week. So they decide to keep it at number 1. Blue Thunder moves back to number 2. Mm-hmm. Flashdance moves back to number 3 because Space Hunter falls to number 4. Breathless stays at number 5, and we get our only new release this weekend that makes the top 12. That would be Chained Heat.
Well, I think that's directed by Jonathan Demme, right?
Can't remember.
I'm going to look it up.
I am too.
But I mean, it should have been if it wasn't.
Yeah, no, it's Paul Nichols.
Damn it.
Nicholas.
Yeah, Paul Nicholas. And, Linda Blair, John Vernon, Sybil Danning.
Sybil Danning.
God, that was essentially a softcore porn film.
We need to watch. I don't know if I've ever watched it.
By the way, it was only in 404 theaters, but it did get to number 6.
Man, I forgot that the warden was John Vernon.
E.T. pops back into the top 10 again. That would have been a great double feature. See E.T., then go see that Star Wars.
Yeah. I'm looking up pictures of Chained Heat. I may be a minute or two. I'll be back in a second.
I want to look up Paul Nicholas real quick to see what else he did, because the name sounds familiar. And no, he's done. Okay. He directed.
He was also Aaron Butler and him co-wrote the film too, though.
He directed 5 movies: Night of the Archer, The Naked Cage, Lucky Town, and Julie Darling, along with Chained Heat. James, keep going.
Yep.
All right.
In June.
Week 22, the first week of June. That Star Wars holds on to number 1. But speaking of long times between the original and the sequel, you know what number 2 is?
What?
Psycho 2.
Psycho 2, written by Tom Holland. No, not your new Spider-Man. Tom Holland, the writer and director of Fright Night and the director of Child's Play.
So this is the one case. This is another one of those cases. So we had Star Wars, which is not a terrible sequel.
It's not a terrible, and Psycho 2 is a
Is
really
not.
good sequel.
Yes, it's a great follow-up.
Yeah.
So
Directed by an Australian. He was the same. I can't remember his name, but he was the same guy that directed Road Games with Stacy Keach and Jamie Lee Curtis.
yeah, I can't. You cannot badmouth Psycho 2, and if you are, you're wrong.
Yeah,
By the way-
probably it's a terrible idea,
Yeah,
but for terrible ideas, it's not a bad movie.
I think they executed it pretty well.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's in more theaters than Star Wars is.
I wonder if Lucas did that on purpose.
Maybe. Number 3 is another new film. We get a movie that a lot of people, if you're my age, grew up in the 80s, you saw this movie aired constantly. Would you like to play a game? War Games.
Oh, War Games was a favorite movie when I was a kid, but I haven't seen it in years.
It premiered in less theaters than Star Wars. It only was in 843 theaters, but outside of Star Wars, which is making $28,000 per theater at this point in its third week, War Games premiered the best that weekend, making $11,000 per theater.
Yeah.
Pretty good. And then the fourth film, another new release, The Man with Two Brains.
That's actually all right. I know The Jerk is a favorite of everyone's, and rightfully so, but that's actually my favorite one of Steve Martin and Carl Reiner's. A lot of people like All of Me. A lot of people, All of Me was a big hit, and this is the one that was not a hit.
No, it wasn't, but it's my favorite.
It's the one I own the poster to.
Yeah.
So stupid funny. And I do mean that in the best way. It is stupid funny.
It is ridiculously,
joking.
Ridiculously stupid. And that's why I love it.
I know.
So 1983 automatically gets a pass for me because it gave me The Man with Two Brains.
And we were talking about two sequels here that don't suck as well. And there's some pretty decent movies going on. I'm starting to smell some a little bit of they gotta protest too much about 83.
But the year started out so rough with holdovers from 82.
I know.
But yeah, The Man with Two Brains, by the way, you gotta give credit also. Carl Reiner was one of the writers and directors. As Steve Martin was also a credited writer, but Kathleen Turner, David Warner. If you need a generic villain, you need David Warner.
Don't ever call Ra's al Ghul generic.
Anyway.
He was Ra's al Ghul in Batman the Animated Series, gentlemen.
I know, but he doesn't matter. He's Gorkon. We're moving on.
Hello, detective.
Now this is really interesting to me because I think this is one of the rare times this happens because Star Wars, we're at week 23, June 10th, gentlemen. Star Wars holds on to number 1, and it's one of the few times that this film has a franchise that premieres at number 2 because MGM releases James Bond in Octopussy.
So I know I have seen it, but I can't tell you a plot or remember anything about it.
It is one of the more forgettable ones, and I know
it's just
Chad,
the name.
I know, Chad, you're a huge fan of Roger Moore. That was the Bond you grew up with, whereas my parents were all about Sean Connery. But yes,
actually, no. If you want, I know you're joking, but if you want to be honest, the Bond that I grew up with was Timothy Dalton.
Well, yeah. The plot, by the way, just to remind you, because you still won't remember, a fake Fabergé egg and a fellow agent's death leads James Bond to uncover an international jewel smuggling operation, which were all the rage in the 80s, headed by the mysterious Octopussy, being used to disguise a nuclear attack on NATO forces.
Oh, goodness. I hope he sure does win the day.
And then number 3 is another film that people talk about and actually has weird crossovers to other films. Because number 3, gentlemen, is Trading Places.
Yeah, that was the other one.
Really? I forgot Trading Places came out in 83.
Yeah, there's my other one.
It didn't only premiered at number 3.
I thought that was the movie you were talking about earlier. Trading Places came out in 1983.
83 is as our Australian fans would say, is a banger.
No, it's not. So far, they've out
Trading
of
Places, Return of the Jedi, Psycho 2.
we're in 6 months in, Joe, of a
But
whole
remember,
year.
82 was the same way.
Right now we're 6 months in, and we got
82 was shit fest for 3 months.
yeah, we're 3 months. We're in month 6, and all we have is three movies that are good.
Tootsie.
No, that doesn't
82
count.
technically. All right,
Oh,
gentlemen.
Videodrome. I'll count Videodrome in there, so I'll give you 4.
Videodrome. People still talk about that. Keep going.
June
James.
17th, week 24. Star Wars is dethroned.
Ooh.
Not by theater average, because it's still averaging $19,845.
Lucas will only let 6 people on 8 televisions watch it.
1,002 theaters. It's the most it ever goes to. But number one is number one probably because it's in 1,759 theaters, a huge amount for this time. And that would be Superman 3.
So now it starts.
All right. James had the disgusted look. If you're just listening to us, if you've never seen Superman, I
It's the one I
enjoyed it as a
watched the
child.
most.
I
As
did
a
too.
child.
It
It's
was
the one I watched the most because
same here.
It's Richard Pryor and our friends had, I think it was on beta, folks. I think it was on beta. I was probably, by the time it probably hit beta, I was probably 4 or 5. I was 4 because my mother very rarely, nobody babysat me or anything like that. But the few times she would have to go someplace, our family friends would watch us, and they had it on tape, which I thought was the coolest thing ever.
It
And it was
was
on
the
beta.
coolest thing at the time.
Yeah.
And I could watch it at any time. And I think
Yes.
they had like 3 movies, one of which may have been Dirty Dancing. But Superman was the one and it was Superman 3.
Yeah, same here. It was like that for me too. It was Superman 3 before Superman 2 or Superman 1.
Well,
Yeah.
hold
And yet
on.
you
No,
had-
Superman 2 was my favorite, but I watched Superman 3.
No, but we're saying is we watch Superman 3 all the time because that's what we had access to.
Yeah.
And it was
and
a
it-
superhero film. And that's what I keep reminding people is those used to not be things, right?
Yeah.
It was rare that you got, especially a half decent budget
Yeah.
superhero film.
And also too, just about Superman 3. Again, I am saying it is a crappy sequel now because the whole split evil man, the evil Superman fighting good Clark. It's just silly. But it had one of the coolest scenes where that woman henchman falls back into the computer and the computer turns her into a robot. That
but
scene
she comes
was
out looking so
shitty. But the transformation was really cool. And all I can think of, all I can think of is they tried to rip off Brainiac in the best way that they could.
There is a great, and you got to go watch it. I don't remember what movie he's promoting, but Richard Pryor's on Johnny Carson. They're asking him about movies and when the movie he's promoting. And actually all he can talk about is no, Superman 2's coming out. Because he was such a nerd and loved Superman. And it explains how he ended up. I don't know, Chad, you know more about it, how he ended up in it, but I
haven't watched the documentary on it.
He's a
I need
big
to.
Superman fan, and I never knew it till it was just one of those things you're on your YouTube. And I was watching Johnny Carson clips, and it's one of those interviews with Richard Pryor going, "Oh man, Superman," and then he starts describing the trailer to Johnny Carson. You can tell Johnny Carson couldn't give 2 fucks about Superman.
Yeah, it's just, and Robert Vaughn. Robert Vaughn is the villain, and right? Yeah, Robert Vaughn is the villain. And it's just Robert Vaughn is one of those guys who is a pretty cool actor, but man, he can ramp up the cheese to like 700.
Dude, he's the villain in Basketball.
I know, but he has a couple of great scenes in Basketball though.
He does, especially with Trailer Hitch here.
Yeah. Or when did you just fart? I can't do it. I can't do a good Robert Vaughn. But but yeah, Superman 3 again. Terrible movie. But for James and I, that was our access. That was the movie we saw a lot because we were comic book people, and that was our movie for a long time.
Plus, to be honest, it is what introduced me to Richard Pryor. And it turns out, guys, I don't know if you know this.
No, the toy introduced me to Richard Pryor.
When I got older and watched some of his other stuff, it turns out he was not as clean as that movie made him out to be.
All right. What any other movies that weekend, or was Superman?
Nope, that was it, folks. But
Is
Joe,
that-
you might find this interesting. We're now to week 25. That's June 24th.
Also, too, guys, if I'm not mistaken about Superman 3, isn't that the first time Canon went full tilt boogie and gave like a movie a huge budget?
No,
Yeah.
it's a super. Canon did Superman 3.
Wait,
Yeah.
no.
I thought
Superman
Canon did.
4.
Oh, Superman 4. That's right. I'm
Superman
sorry.
4. Yeah, that's what I was saying. It was
Sorry.
Superman
They
4.
cut the budget actually on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Well, gentlemen, we are now well into the summer. It is June 24th, week 25.
And this is our last weekend. We're going to cut here, right? And go in
Yeah.
July. We'll start the next one.
Yeah, we'll pick up part 2 next week.
Because we are now Star Wars, obviously still number 1, which takes back number 1 from Superman. Superman falls to number 2, but number 3, I know what you're thinking. Didn't they say they re-released a film and there was a reason for it? That's because number 3 is Porky's 2 the next day.
Oh, that premiered at number 2.
Number 3.
Number 3.
Star Wars number 1, Superman fell to 2, Porky's 3 is number 3.
You mean Porky's 2?
Yeah, that too. Also, anybody want to talk about how important Porky's 2 is to you?
I've never seen it. Or if I have no recollection of it. But I am a fan of the original. I am a fan of the first one. I don't think it dates well, just simply because a lot of the jokes and humor are not accepted by society today.
Well, I mean, and we've talked about that before. I mean, the Revenge of the Nerds is not.
Yeah. Where
I
a
mean-
joke in the Revenge of the Nerds is literally a rape joke that in '84 no one thought anything about.
But Porky's 2, number 4 is what shocks me, that it was number 4, that it didn't beat out Porky's 2, because number 4, and I should have said we have 4 movies that make it into the top 10. Number 4 is Twilight Zone the movie, premiered at number 4.
So that movie had been done at least a year or two by then, correct, guys?
Yeah.
Because it got caught up in legal cases. I don't think those legal cases, especially against John Landis, were resolved for a few years later. It's actually how reason he was directed Trading Places. That was the first movie he was offered. He just took it.
Well, no, Eddie Murphy got him that job.
Yeah.
And then John Landis treated him like shit during the shooting of that. And then Eddie Murphy said never again.
And then they did Coming to America.
Yeah. There you go.
These things happen.
And Eddie Murphy has the best burn ever. I truly think this is the best, not really appropriate, but best burn on another human being ever. I would work. Vic Morrow will work with John Landis again before I do.
Yeah. Did he say
If
that
you
after
don't-
Trading Places, right?
He
Or-
said it. I think after Coming to America.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I got my history wrong. It was Coming to America that Eddie Murphy got him the
for
job
Coming to America. Yeah.
because nobody would hire him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then John Landis treated him like shit. Yeah.
They argued a lot. By then I'm curious to how big the entourage was. I'm sure there was shit on both sides.
There normally is. By the way,
I need to send you the podcast that I listened to about John Landis, the 2-parter. Man, it did not paint a pretty picture of him. I lost some respect.
Yeah.
by the way, so
sure.
Twilight Zone's number 4. Speaking of Trading Places, it's at number 5. It is
Yeah.
still.
It was a hit. I was kind of shocked it didn't premiere at number 1, but it makes sense. I'm assuming it sticks around all summer.
Yeah. Octopussy, by the way, falls to number 6.
No.
In its 3rd week.
No.
War Games in its 4th week is number 7, and then we get the other new release at number 8. There's one more after this that comes in at 10, but number 8 is your favorite film that paired, directed by Michael Ritchie, pairing the great Walter Matthau and the great Robin Williams, The Survivors.
That's another one no one remembers.
No.
Oh, by the way, and Jerry Reed.
And Jerry Reed. Jerry Reed's an assassin in it.
Assassin, a cold-hearted assassin.
Yeah.
And not
Nobody.
the only Jerry Reed movie we're going to talk about this year.
Nobody talks about this though. Nobody. I haven't heard anybody say anything about this.
I've seen it. Have either one of you all seen it?
Oh yeah,
I
I've seen
saw
it.
years ago.
I saw
years
it about
ago.
a year ago.
Oh, it's been longer than a year. It's been a minute. It's been about 20 years since I've seen it. And I remember finding it, not going, what in the hell is this? Does it even exists?
It's a little slow, guys. It is a little slow, but there are moments, especially especially when Robin Williams goes a little bit batshit crazy, that it gets really interesting. But yeah, Jerry Reed as the cold-hearted hitman, he's awesome in that movie. I highly recommend checking out. I'm not saying it's a great film, but it is worth a shot because again, it's one of those forgotten movies. It's Robin Williams' forgotten films.
Yeah, I completely agree with Chad. It is completely forgotten, and I think if most people don't know who Jerry Reed is, but if they did, and I told them, he played an assassin bad guy, they'd be like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
Yeah,
I mean,
most people, yeah, no. Nowadays, people go, the bad coach from Waterboy.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
So that premiered at number 8. Number 9 is Flashdance hanging on, but number 10, Chad, I thought you might have something to say about this one. Orion Pictures releases in 761 theaters, and it charts at number 10, Yellowbeard.
That premiered at number 10.
I still have yet to finish it.
Oh my God. I know. I know Yellowbeard is a tough movie to watch. I know this. That being said, I enjoy it. I enjoy it to no end. Especially the go-betweens between Graham Chapman and Madeline Kahn. I love that. I love the back and forth with them. And then Peter Cook as Lord Lambourne. I love him in that movie. Yeah, I know the movie's terrible. But I know it is. But I enjoy the hell out of it.
And I want to just so our listeners know, if you've never seen Yellowbeard, just listen to this cast. You have some Pythons, Graham Chapman, John Cleese, Eric Idle, but you also have Marty Feldman, Tommy Chong, Peter Boyle, as Chad said, Peter Cook, Cheech Marin, James
Mason as Captain Hughes.
Kenneth Mars.
The best part about James Mason, and it still to this day throws me off. And by the way, spoilers, but there's a scene where Yellowbeard and his crew take over his ship, and they make James Mason get off the ship, and just randomly he has the weirdest meltdown that I've ever seen in cinema history. I
don't think I made it that far in the movie.
It makes no sense. It's just there, and he just does this weird performance. It's so. It blows your mind out how weird it is. It's great. Go ahead, James.
And Spike Milligan. That's the other one. I mean, but if you're a fan of movies of a certain type, this is a cast that if you just watch the movie by cast, you would assume this has to be one of the funniest films ever made.
And it's a complete misstep. But God, I love it. The only problem I have with that is the third act.
It just is so. It doesn't have a spine at all. I mean, It is just meandering. It is just.
Yeah. No, I am not arguing with you at all. But I just have fond memories of some of the lines, of some of the bits. I'm
just still shocked about Trading Places never being at number 1. I'm curious to see. Tune in next week because I'm curious to find out how that plays out, because I think people remember Trading Places a lot more than they do. And War Games, by the way. Thought War Games would be hanging on even longer, because I think people remember those movies a lot more than they do some of these others I don't think people are talking about Porky's 2 that much today.
No, I don't, but that's what I mean. And I think that's to the point that some people say this is a hard year for movies. Again, if you remove all the holdovers, which just to drive this point home, Chad, in case you were trying to keep track, Tootsie finally fell out of the top 10. It's at number 13. Blue Thunder, which was released during this year, is at number 12. But I mean, a lot of these movies were still holdovers and they were still around. E.T. had fallen out of the top 15 by this point. But we really are deep into summer and we're not seeing too many movies that were new that are making much noise.
No.
All right, guys. Well, this has been Bonehead Weekly. And
hold on real quick. This is the one line from Yellowbeard that I still bet Madeline Kahn. Well, it's been a while since we had a little cuddle. Yellowbeard says, "I raped you, if that's what you mean." Betty says, "Okay, it was a half cuddle, half rape."
By the way, that movie's very PG. I don't know if that would work anymore in a PG film.
No way, shape, or form. It was funny is that's a gay guy screaming at Madeline Kahn in real life.
It's just so, and Madeline Kahn does it so straight and so loving, and it's like, just anyway. Go ahead, Jay. Yeah, this has been Bonehead Weekly.
We're going to give you a half cuddle on next week's episode.
That's a rough year.